Jack led Claire through the twisting hallways after leaving the briefing office. The halls were dimly lit, but clear of the dead. Claire stopped at the corner right in front of him. "Anything?" Jack said. Claire peered out of the corner. Just cluttered freeway hallway. She nodded and turned to Jack. "Whoever is running these halls is clearing the way." She motioned towards Jack. Jack peeked past her shoulder to see a dead police officer slumped against the far wall. The skin was peeled away, and it was obvious that he had turned into a prior death. Jack continued past towards the body, while Claire peered out through the tinted window, leading towards the homicide invasion. Jack held the gun up to his face, his finger on the trigger. Jack slapped his hand across its face. Claire turned to glare at him. "What the hell, Jack?" He winced a little at her voice. "It's a way to check," he shrugged. "We need ammo." The officer was carrying a Beretta. A magazine was useless in their weapons, and taking a spare gun was out of the question, without the proper holster. And add to the fact that Jack had no training with Berettas in the past, he was for sure to figure out how to use a weapon. But the idea of learning new weapons in the moment was undesirable. "I get it," Claire said. "What we need is better weapons." Jack nodded. "But for now these will have to do. Get your clips loaded. We better keep moving." Claire led the way down the darkened hallways, loading her magazine, pressing the bullets against the clip as Jack covered her from hall to hall. They came to a stairwell, and she pulled to the side on the Browning and led the way up the stairs. Jack kept close, watching their backs as they ascended. The stairs creaked beneath their feet as they entered the second floor. To their left was a long hallway, and the other direction led to a set of double doors. There was a golden plate that read "Library." Jack went the opposite direction and kept to the walls. The lights flickered and the hallways darkened. The power seemed to have gone out a long time ago. Claire turned on her flashlight, holding a light to her Browning. Suddenly, something skittered past. Jack noticed a doorframe in the darkness with another golden plate. Stars. "Great, we found it." He threw open the door. "Did you see that?" Claire asked. "What? I don't think it was a zombie. We should be safe inside." Jack held letter inside and closed the door firmly behind them. Once inside, Jack and Claire began shuffling through the desks. Honestly, Claire couldn't even remember which desk belonged to her brother. She tried the back desk. Materials on the desk were shown about. A small verbal plant sat next to the keyboard. Claire raised her eyebrows. This couldn't be his desk. Chris wasn't so much of a gardening type. She turned to her side to find a medical kit hanging from the wall and pulled it from its hinging spot. Inside were some medical spray, bandages, nothing memento. Under the keyboard was a note. Claire moved it from the board and read down the text of lines briefly. "Rebecca, Barry, Chris, and I have successfully located the Spain facility. We'll be moving there soon with some ex-STARS members to gather evidence and make arrests. I want to take a moment to write to you while I could, in case if something happens. That night at the Spencer mansion, what you said you were right. I was running not from the monsters we encountered, not from Umbrella. I was running from my past. I was a jerk. If I return, I would love to come and see you. I promise I'll do all I can to make it home. When I get there, I'll come for you. Yours, Liam." Rebecca! Claire recognized the name. Someone from STARS Bravo team. Claire only knew a name. What bothered her was Chris. Clearly he had left the town a while back. Jack shuffled through the desk, facing the front officer, where the large STARS banner hung behind the main desk. His hands fell across the green leather journal bound, and the front read, "Chris." He flipped through it, looking through the latest entry. August 24th, 1998. With the help of Jill, Barry, and Liam, I have finally obtained the information to the vital this case. Umbrella had begun research on the new G virus, variation of the original T virus. What does the G virus do? We talked it over, and decided to fly to the main Umbrella HW in Europe. I won't tell my sister about this trip, as doing so would put her in danger. Please forgive me, Claire. Jack paused after reading the journal. The proof and the information that I had been seeking was coming to Raccoon City, all with Chris. The Spencer estate was no longer a priority. If he was to expose Umbrella, he would have had to locate Chris Redfield and his partners. Find anything? Claire asked from behind him. Jack nodded. Yeah. He slipped the journal into her hands and looked up at him questionably. The latest entry. It looks like we're not going to find your brother here after all. The virus. That's it. He left town to continue the investigation. He was trying to stop this, Claire said as she read the passage. Jack nodded. Yeah, he also left this behind. Jack held up a golden medallion with a picture of a unicorn up front. I don't understand, she said. I have a hunch. There's a statue in the main hall that is an indication shaped like this. Maybe something we can use? Jack said, slipping the medal into his pocket. Claire nodded. Then that's where we need to go next. Claire, she looked up at him. Your brother, he only knew something about Umbrella. He has the information I am seeking to take down Umbrella. If it's true and they caused this, and he has proof, we need to find him. So he's nothing but evidence to you? Jack shook his head. You don't understand. I used to work with Umbrella. Your brother has every right to get the hell out of town. If he stayed, it's likely Umbrella would have harmed him. You can't be serious. A multi-billion-dollar pharma company attempting to murder police officers? Claire, look around us. They've taken down a whole city. If what your brother says is true, they're trying to cover it up. It's not that it's just evidence. I know he is your brother, but right now, your brother could be our only hope of justice against Umbrella. Claire seemed to think a bit. Okay, how so? But she was cut off. The door suddenly shut, and Leon appeared at the doorway. Jack took a step back. Leon, Claire said excitedly. Leon nodded, and just a small child stepped out from behind him. Hey, I've been looking for you all this since I got here. Leon shot Jack a quick glance. Oh, this is Jack. I found him in the cells. He's been helping me find my brother. Leon nodded. In the cells? Claire shot Leon a look that said, I can handle this. All right, this is Sherry. Found her wandering around the police station. Sherry waved nervously to Jack and Claire. Claire crouched down to Sherry. Hi, nice to meet you, Sherry. Claire looked up at Leon. Do you know if there's a way out of here? We've been planning to head back to the parking garage, Jack said, folding his arms. Leon nodded. It's a good start. The parking garage is our plan A. The sewers is plan B. Let's all meet in the parking garage. If things don't look like when we had underground, Leon said. He holstered his handgun and directed Sherry to sit into a nearby desk chair. Is the girl going to be okay? Jack asked. Leon nodded. She's been through a lot, honestly. For now, she's going to rest a while we look for supplies. Jack nodded. Great. We have a pit stop, and then we're heading for the parking. Claire nodded in agreement. Excellent. Here, take this radio. We can keep in contact. If anything changes, please let us know. And let's touch that base when we reach the garage, Leon said as he dropped the radio into Claire's grasp. Jack and Claire nodded. You ready? Claire nodded. Can't stay here. Claire grasped the doorknob before stopping and turning to Leon as she started searching the lockers. Wait! Leon looked back at them. Leon, there's something in this station. It attacked us. It wasn't the zombies. A man in a trench coat. She's right. He's incredibly dangerous. We probably shot almost 10 times and didn't even stumble. If you see it, run like hell. Leon nodded. Great. Just what we needed. Jack then pulled his handgun from his holster and led Claire out the door. Leon watched them leave. He had decided against telling them about the monster he saw before. Leon looked back at Sherry. It wasn't just about him getting out anymore. Sherry was just a child. He would do anything to help her get her out of life. Only a couple of hours later, Jack and Claire found themselves slipping through another yet heavy oak door. The brass doorknob was cool to the touch. Claire pushed with her shoulder on her Browning handgun, trained as the light poured into the hallway behind them. Jack followed her closely with his back watching the dimly lit hallway behind them. Jack closed the door behind them, and Claire scanned the balcony above them. When she noticed the room was clear, she took into the new environment. The walls were lined with books. Shelves jutted out of the middle of the room. Jack paced ahead of her, checking between the shelves. He paused at the last aisle that brought his hand to his mouth. Shit, he gagged, and locked his eyes down on something down the aisle. Claire hurried to catch up to him with her weapon to her side and peeked around the corner at the last aisle. She had a strong stomach, but even she felt her guts squirm at the ghastly sight. A young woman was slouched against the wall down the aisle. Her skin wasn't peeled away. Her face was torn, along with her eyes were void of life. They weren't dead. I don't think she had the chance to turn, Jack said quietly. The woman's stomach was torn open. Her intestines were hanging from the gut like huge worms. Her ribs jutted out of her abdomen. They were broken apart and strewn beside her. The poor woman had been carved out. Her organs were not where they should have been. Her body was hollow like a pumpkin on Halloween. Her mouth was gaped open at a permanent, never-ending awe. The fear, her expression, was unmistakable. God damn it! Seeing them never gets easier. Jack stepped away, and Claire could hear him sigh on the other side. Claire turned from the grisly sight and joined Jack in the middle of the library. After doing the paranoid once over the room, Jack holstered his weapon and leaned against the brown statue, which was situated against another statue. It faded away as positioned towards the library wall. The statue was of a fairly plain-looking man made of rock colored in brown. This place is a maze. Maybe we should head downstairs after this and just keep descending until we hit the parking garage. Jack shrugged as he folded his arms in frustration. It can't hurt to check everything. Claire stopped in her tracks and stared at the trio of statues of Jack leaned against it. What he looked up to see her was a thoughtful gaze. Her eyes shifted back and forth. What? Does this look weird to you? Jack raised to her side and looked at the statues. They were a free man, the brown plain one to the left Jack had rested against, one on the far end of which was a gray stone, with a plain-looking man facing the opposite direction. The figure in the middle stole the show, and it had its pedestal and featured a muscular man in Roman armor, holding what looked like red, sparkling jewels towards the roof. It doesn't make sense, Claire said. Am I missing something? Do you see? The statues were all in separate places of art, bunched up together in the middle of the room. Why not spread them out and look balanced in the room? Jack was confused. Balanced? You know, Claire said. Jack raised an eyebrow at her. The feeling of the decoration of the room is off. Jack approached the middle statue. It had an inscription on the front panel. The god of the sun, god of the moon, their gaze upon me is the only thing that released Red's soul. What does that mean? Jack said. Claire moved to the brown statue and then looked at the god statue. She placed her shoulder onto the base and pushed the brown statue. It slid. She felt a shift on the floor, like something heavy shifting below them. Jack pulled his Springfield, expecting a new monster in the trench coat to come out stomping around the corner. Something on the floor is moving. It's a mechanism, Claire said excitedly. Jack looked over towards the wall, where the brown statue faced. It was a brown-colored wood tile. It appeared to be the same width and length as the statues. He peered over to the other side of the direction of the gray statue and saw the same thing. I think I know we're supposed to be due here. He pointed to the brown statue. Sun. Then to the statue. Moon. They have to face the god, Claire muttered to herself. Without hesitation, they began to push the statue around, past the moon god statue, so the god's gaze would fall upon the middle god. Jack followed suit as he pushed the moon god in the opposite direction to the far wall of the sun one that faced. In minutes since both gods facing the god statue in the middle, Claire's fit into place with a thud. Jack slipped on several seconds later. As it landed, there was another slow rumble and a snap of the statue. The red jewel slipped from its grasp, clattered to the ground. Claire raced to pick up the jewel from the wooden floor. What do you think it's for? Jack asked. Claire slid the jewel into her side pocket. I don't know, but after all, we're not just going to leave it here. Jack nodded. Come on, we're almost to the main hall, I bet. He led Claire to the double doors on the far side behind the statues and took a deep breath before passing against it and turning the handle. He pointed his weapon as he moved through the doorway, but as soon as he heard the echo of his footsteps in the cavernous main hall, he knew where he was. Claire walked past him and leaned over the railing. She couldn't help but smile at the familiarity of the giant room. A straight across she could see the neighboring balcony. A couple of zombies patrolled till the far side of their moans echoed through the hall. There, the statue. When we found that medallion your brother stings, the shape of it reminds me of that circle indication of a statue. I first saw it when they brought me into the cells, Jack said, as he led her down the hall stairs to the lower level, reminding herself to routinely check the shambling monsters to make sure they stayed on the balcony. They didn't seem to notice them yet. He approached the statue and removed the golden unicorn medallion from his pocket and placed it carefully into the identification. It just was another low rumbling heard. A statue swiftly slid towards the pair. What the hell? Claire said as she stumbled backwards. I didn't see that coming, Jack said, as the statue of the young maiden shifted along with a sparkling red object fell to the pitcher. It clattered onto the tray before them. What is all this? Why is the crazy puzzles and shifting statues and unseen gears? Have I seen stuff like this since Spencer's Estate blueprints? Jack thought to himself. Does their influence to every city's foundation really stretch this far? Jack, I don't know, Claire trailed off. Jack snatched a red jewel and pocketed it, and Jack started for the stairs. There's one more area of this police station I know we haven't searched yet. Come on. Jack, wait! Jack stopped and looked to see Claire, as she seemed to be deep in thought, her eyes fixated on the ground before her. Are we gonna talk about whatever the hell it was upstairs to the statues? Jack shook his head. I mean, I just think we have more pressing matters right now. She stepped forward and looked into his eyes. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, puzzles and riddles? Jack holstered his handgun. I know it's crazy. Then why do you seem fazed by this? Jack turned to her and approached the stone statue of the maiden. The golden unicorn medallion gleamed back at him. The truth is, Claire, it doesn't stop surprising you, Jack admitted, as he let his hands fall across the shiny medallion, the cool metal responding to his touch. What are you talking about? You've seen this before. Jack shook his head. Kind of. I mean, I've seen the blueprints. Claire wasn't sure what to make of what Jack was telling her. He couldn't mean Umbrella. Umbrella, they were famous for this kind of thing. It started with the high-tech computer systems and cameras. It evolved into booby traps, puzzles, like what you saw upstairs. Claire was shocked by what he was saying. I get the security measures, but booby traps and puzzles? Umbrella is a high-tech pharmaceutical company. Why would it dabble in mazes and riddles? Jack turned to face her. Umbrella is full of secrets. When you have the secrets, you'll do anything to keep others out. What kind of secrets? When I drove down into town, right before I was arrested, I drove to the outskirts in the Arklay Mountains. There's an old site there, the Spencer Estate. I was informed by my contact Burton that there was a lab beneath the mansion. He told me about all these kinds of crazy occurrences, the puzzles and contraptions, the horrifying failed biological weapons, about the connection between Umbrella and the captain that betrayed him, and I had studied the blueprints Burton provided. They were dismissed by the local police force and basically driven out of town. Burton wanted his team exonerated. Claire's eyes went wide with disbelief. It was the first time Jack had realized he had her full attention. Someone caught the wind of my investigation, and frankly, if Umbrella has Raccoon City deep in their pockets, to the point where it built the city with traps, then I was framed, so they could have known Raccoon was behind the midst of the outbreak to leave me dead in the cell. The point is, Claire, I think all of this has to do with Umbrella, and I think your brother knew that too. We have to be careful. This isn't going to be straightforward. Claire nodded. It seemed that she was beginning to believe him. We'll need to think of outside the box. We'll need to find out what these jewels can do, Jack said. Stay close. Without another word, they jogged up the stairs to the opposite balcony. Two zombies before them moaned with their insides onto the pair. Jack stepped forward and fired 2 rounds, clipping the first zombie in the head, and then second shot. Claire fired as well. She missed the first and hit the zombie twice with the last 2, turning the red into mush. It seemed that the dead flesh couldn't quite as hold as well under direct attack. Jack held down the gag reflex in his throat and watched the bodies carefully as they entered the waiting room. They had been there before. Claire shut the door behind them, and Claire and Jack slipped through the small room, almost knocking over the potted plant over the receptionist counter before opening the next door. "We never got to check this hall before the helicopter crash," Jack said as he motioned for her to follow. Claire nodded and covered his advantage down the hall, watching the opposite end of the hall make their fire escape. Claire could barely make out the flickering light of the helicopter crash from before. She shuddered at the thought of Mr. X finding his way back up the stairs, and their last encounter, remembering watching them from the flames from the crash. Jack traced the corner with his Springfield, and Claire joined him by the side. There was a good dead-end hallway with a heavy oak door on the left, and another light brown door on the right. Jack ran through the first door on his left. It was made by high-quality oak wood. The golden nameplate screwed onto the wall, just right outside the door. "Chief Irons." Jack turned the handle. It barely turned. "Damn, it's locked." "The chief, do you think he made it out?" Claire asked. "Well, I'd say that there's only 3 things that could have happened. He's long dead, he's escaped, or he's hiding out there." Jack laughed to himself, "But I seriously doubt that. Let's try the other door. We can always pry this one open later," Claire said as she raced through the end of the hallway and turned the knob. It rolled down and the door and creaked open. She couldn't help but cringe at the loud noise echoing down the dark hallway. Jack followed her in. The first thing he noticed about the room was the moonlight pouring from the skylight above. Wow! It was the first view of the night sky he had seen since waking up early to make a trip to Raccoon. Claire scanned the room when she spotted something towards the back of the room wall. A statue. It was similar to the middle stone god statue that they saw in the library. The one appeared to be coming out of the wall. It had chains hanging from either side of the walls, as if holding them back. On the other side of the chain statue was a bust down of 2 women. Each had indications on their brooches. Their faces were blank, with no features. The shapes were all too familiar. Jack removed the red jewels from his pocket and handed one to Claire. She stepped forward and placed it in the slot. Nothing happened. Jack frowned. Then he stepped forward and placed his in the opposite statue's bust, and with that, both jewels clicked and sunk in place. "We did something," Claire said, watching the statue suspiciously. The middle statue turned to twisting their upper torso in one sleek move to expose its back. The back opened up to reveal a large compartment. Jack reluctantly slipped his hand inside and pulled the first item out. It was long and black. It was a great weight to it. As he slid out, he was surprised of how long it was. When it finally slid out, the metal clinked against the stone, and Jack had brought it up off his hand and grasped the tube. It was a black pump-action shotgun, and it had a pistol grip but no bud. It was one of those homemade defense weapons that did not look standard issues to Raccoon City Police. Just above the trigger was a name, Rigmington, scribbled onto the side. Jack pulled up the pump back, and Claire tucked her hand in for another option in the statue. It was loaded, 12 gauge. Claire pulled out the slim object from the inside of the statue. "What is it?" Jack nodded. "Oh, I've seen those before. Not sure why it's in the police station." He reached to the side of her gun and pushed the release button. There was rods on each side that extended outward suddenly. There was a thick fiber string stretched across the widths of the rod. It was a crossbow. "Think it'll work against those things?" She motioned for the door. "Don't stick your nose up at it. Crossbows are very powerful weapons. Plus, you'll never run out of ammo as long as you retrieve your bolts," Jack said. "It only came with one," Claire frowned. "Better hold on to it. There's gotta be more bolt spots somewhere. And if someone went through trouble finding it here, Jack said. Claire nodded. He did have a point. What's the plan now? Jack said, as she steadied the ready gun. Claire folded the crossbow. That was when they heard it. Something nearby. Heavy footsteps coming down the hall. They weren't normal footsteps. They were thudding like someone was dragging and dropping a body over and over. Is that who I think it is? Claire said as they stacked on the door, ready to fight their way out.